join you in your Teams meetings, and they are not yet using Teams. I know it's an incredibly widely deployed technology now, huge footprint, but there are some people out there who are not using Teams yet. And it might be your customer. Forcing your customer to use a suboptimal access to your Teams meeting might not be the way to go. They insist on using the video systems that they have. They've got a group meeting. You will accommodate that by deploying CVI in your own tenant. So two basic reasons for deploying CVI. It's a very simple proposition for what could be a complex user experience challenge. Effectively, CVI enables calling into your Teams meetings from a standard-based video endpoint or client, H323 or SIG. You use familiar Microsoft Teams meeting scheduling. You don't have to create something new, you don't install a plugin, you press the purple button. Everything happens behind the scenes. It's a native meeting workflow for Teams, and the user experience from the video endpoint is native as well. I'll go on to talk about how that particular user joins said meeting, but at the end of the day, you're using a video conferencing device in the way that we've always used a video conferencing device, and you're using Teams in exactly the same way as you use Teams. You're booking the meetings in exactly the same way as you're using Teams. What it does is it allows you to focus on your journey to Teams. Some of you may be looking at swapping out legacy systems for MTRs. This is something that doesn't happen overnight, right? You plan for that migration. CVI gives you the breathing space effectively to be able to focus on that Teams migration whilst you retire that legacy or swap out that legacy infrastructure. Or alternatively, it might be that you don't have a 100% Teams strategy moving forward for video. You might want to retain some of those premium video meeting systems in those room spaces rather than swapping out for you shiny technology from the likes of Logitech, as Martin showed us previously. There are other factors involved, the refresh of that equipment. Is it green? Is it really eco-friendly? Swapping out a ton of kit, but entirely up to you guys. And we know that we've got customers who have video systems that they have been sweating for 10 years and have no intention of retiring those video systems. The infrastructure associated with those systems, the core control platforms, may be coming end of service, and I'll go on to talk about that as a particular challenge when it comes to adding CVI to the environment. But at the end of the day, you may well have a slate of video systems that you absolutely want to retain inside your business. CVI allows you to do that. So I talked about 5 steps. Step 1, planning. This is actually 3 slides worth of conversation here, because there are a lot of factors to take into account. First thing you've got to do, work with your particular partner. Now, there are four vendors of CVI. You work with your partner with that particular CVI platform, and you'll look at how that platform is licensed. And you think, oh, that's easy, yeah, just concurrent connections or direct point or whatever. Think about some of the other subtleties of that environment as well. What happens when you get to the end of your, let's say you bought 10 licenses, what happens when an 11th call is placed? Is there a hard ceiling? Does your CEO sit in his office getting an engaged tone when he attempts to join from his shiny new Cisco Desktop Pro, joining your Teams meeting? Minor considerations, but could have a huge impact on the user experience. Hard or soft ceilings. Is there any overflow available within that licensing scheme? How is it licensed per endpoint? The terms of the license, the duration of the license. working with your partner to figure that out, what's best for you in that given environment. Endpoint requirements, versions and protocols, they are important. SIP and H323 are supported for calling, certainly on the Pexip CVI solution. I promise this will be a product pitch, but I just mentioned the Pexip solution there. But 323 and SIP, that's important because remember, you're not just providing this facility for your own endpoints, you're providing it for third-party business partners who might want to join you in that space. Versions and protocols, you need to understand which versions, which protocols, whether there's any limitations in terms of the connectivity into said environment. Data privacy, security, reliability, compliance credentials. As an SA, I've lost count of the number of times I've completed a security questionnaire. The most popular template for said security questionnaires from customers is actually garnered from the National Cyber Security Centre. They publish or they have a page and a downloadable document that talks about 14 cloud security principles. If you are taking the service from a third party that is based in a public cloud environment, you want to ensure that that is secure. You want to know that the data collected about those calls, metadata, is stored, is encrypted in a location that suits your business needs, whether that's a GDPR requirement, you've got public and personal identifiable information. You want to know where that's stored. We have customers who demand that information is only stored within the European Economic Union, for instance, or sorry, European Economic Area. All of these are factors in that decision. As I said, I've answered a lot of those security questionnaires, and the NCSE document is definitely the template a lot of customers have used. You'll probably want to run a trial. So when you're planning this, the experience with that video interop function is key. Your users won't use it if it's a rubbish experience. They want something that's going to be equitable with the team's experience. So you probably want to run a free trial if that partner offers a free trial. You probably want to do a trial or a proof of concept to see what that user experience is like, what the video experience is like, from the many locations you might have inside of your organization. Final basic requirement or consideration is around how you want that service to be provided. Now, I mentioned the public cloud environment. We actually have customers who want to have all of the metadata, all of the actual video data within inside of their own environment, inside their own data center, or inside their own private cloud. So you need to work out whether or not the vendor is actually offering that choice to self-host that video interop function. There are additional considerations for that video interop. Now remember, this is 5 steps to success. The planning bit is the biggest bit, so preparation, measure twice, cut once. For any carpenters out there. But you might want to consider things like endpoint registration, cloud call control. I talked about that. If you've got endpoints that are registered to an existing call control environment that is coming end of life, end of service, you can save yourself the money on the maintenance if they are still accepting maintenance on those products. Move to a 100% cloud environment for the video call control. You might be migrating away from Skype for Business. You might be using Skype for Business as the call control for your video environment. A lot of poly systems enable you to register those devices to Skype for Business. You retire Skype for Business, and you've retired your call control for those poly endpoints. You need to have call control for those poly endpoints. You can offer that, or you might want to consider a vendor who offers call control in the cloud as an alternative there. Branding. When you send out these meeting invitations and when people join your meetings, are you projecting your image, or are you projecting the image of the vendor who sold you the licenses of the CVI function? Do you want your name to appear, your company name to appear on a meeting invitation, or the domain associated with the vendor who sold you the CVI function? Do you want people sitting and waiting in the lobby on those video endpoints to see a banner advertising the vendor of the video Interop function, or do you want to see, or do you want them to see your company image? This is reassuring for a third party as well, right? If you're joining a Teams meeting from a video endpoint, you're sitting there in a lobby, you're looking at a generic landing page, not knowing whether you're actually joining the company's meeting that you've been invited to, or you've ended up somewhere completely different. Differentiated lobby bypass, another consideration here. Your video endpoints are accessing that Teams meeting as a guest. If you invite a guest to join your Teams meeting, the Teams experience is that guest enters the lobby. The same is true for video endpoints coming in through the CVI function. All CVI functions effectively put the video endpoint into the meeting as a guest. Differentiated lobby bypass, trusted devices effectively allows you to determine which devices are yours inside of your environment and will therefore be treated in the same way as somebody calling from a Teams client inside of your own domain. So your video endpoints don't sit and wait in the lobby. Why is that important? Well, you can imagine if you are using CVI and somebody decides that they are going to join that meeting from a room. They walk into the room, they join the meeting, whatever the mechanism is, I'll go on to that later. They join the meeting, and because that endpoint isn't trusted, it's their own endpoint, they're sat there waiting in the lobby. They have to fire up the Teams client anyway in order to be able to admit that participant from the lobby. It's just a workflow consideration, one of those additional considerations as part of that planning process. Teams Live Event support. I don't know if anyone's using Teams Live Event as a way of distributing content to a broader audience, streaming, but accessing Teams Live Events from a video endpoint, being able to use a video endpoint from one of those meeting rooms to give you access into that team and effectively be a contributor to said Teams Live event. You want to look at compliance, I mentioned that, visitor notifications, audio participant avatars, information presented to the user on the VTC system. For instance, you might be using transcription, you might be using recording. It is your responsibility to ensure that anyone joining your meetings from a video endpoint actually is notified that they're being recorded. It's legally binding. You want to have a look at analytics reporting, you want to know whether or not the CVI service is being used, how it's being used, you want to review your licensing arrangements. You want to look at how video is laid out in those video endpoints. You've got large screens in rooms, displaying participants who've decided to switch off their video as a big square with a video camera with a cross through it is a waste of that screen real estate. Other considerations. Configuration, this is relatively straightforward in that process, delivering CVI to your organization. You'll receive instructions on how to do this. You'll receive instructions around the any necessary firewall requirements. Remember, if you're accessing public service, your video endpoints will be dialing out to that public internet. You might want to include configurations for your Exchange environment so that you can calendar endpoints, and I'll come on to that as a joining function. You will need to initiate consent for the CVI application. It's a trusted application that's launched in your Office 365 environment, along with probably a plethora of other applications already there delivering value. What you'll need to do is, you may well need to involve your security team to vet those. So you want to look for a provider who lists what those permissions are being, or what those permissions are, why they're being asked for that application launched in your environment. Provisioning is really simple. This is where you're adding to the policy, which is already defined within Microsoft Teams, the information about the provider offering you the CVI service, and then going on to allow users to access this. And you can apply this to users one-by-one basis or as a global. If you want to do multiple from an organizational unit, then your vendor of choice might be able to offer you a ready-baked command that does that, so allows you to allocate this function to multiple users within your organization. They will end up with additional data in their Teams meeting invite. They're not doing anything new, they're pressing the Teams button, it's a familiar joining experience, no plugins. The information is posted on their invite and it's available to third parties who are joining from a VPC. For users within inside of your organisation, then you might want to look at how they get to join your meetings. By default, there is a default entry queue. You dial that entry queue and then use IVR, an IVR service, DTMF tones to enter the meeting. I hate doing that on a video endpoint because DTMF tones, you get it wrong, you're going to drop the call and start again. You might have someone who's willing to punch in the direct dial information to that meeting, so the conference ID and the domain. Again, unless you've got a touchpad, putting anything in that is alphanumeric, pain in the butt. Cisco endpoints, some of those will allow you to use a macro on screen, default domain for the Teams call, and then punch in a number. You've got the ability then to delete that before you hit the call button, and it constructs the dial string. Alternatively, and most popular, one-touch join. This is whereby you have the room system calendared via your Exchange environment. It's a resource, and you send the meeting invite to the resource. And the meeting invite is read. The meeting details are extracted from that invite, and the endpoint is sent a dial string that it displays on the screen along with the join button. You walk into the room, there's a green button, you click join. Other ways of joining a meeting, QR codes, personal calendar app allows you to join those from a companion app by nominating the endpoint you're going to use. We're here at the stand, the show, Pexip. If you want to learn the 5 reasons why you want to choose Pexip as your video interop provider, come along to the stand. Alternatively, you can use this website to find out more information on Microsoft stuff, Microsoft interoperability, or contact yourself. As I said, but probably easy to speak to anyone on the stand. Thank you for your attention, your patience at the start of all of this. And now, any questions? We have a big red thing to throw into the audience.
Well, sorry, I won't be popular here. I need to play the timekeeper, and we're already on the next session. So if you have questions for Steve, just grab him when we're done. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.